After a two-year hiatus, the continent's healthcare community gathered in Gauteng to assess the state of the industry post the COVID-19 pandemic. Now the gathering will address the needs of African healthcare professionals as well as share strategies to transform the future of medicine. And of course, it runs until tomorrow. Let's discuss it further now with the Group Director of Informa, Solenne Singer. Solenne, thank you so much for your time. How challenging was it to put this event together, looking at the fact that, the post-COVID-19 pandemic picture is still filled with a lot of uncertainty?
Hi, thank you for having me. Actually, we've had a really good response to our event. We've been talking to our exhibitors and our participants and all of our partners over the last few years, and there's been such a huge appetite to come back to business, come back to face-to-face, in-person discussions, learning, business. So it's just been a great start, and people are very excited to be here. And today has just been a phenomenal event, and just a testament to what can be done, and the fact that people want to come back to live events as well.
And I mean, it's quite a huge gathering, of healthcare professionals. And of course, it's in its 10th year running. So there's been quite a lot of pictures that, have been emerging and changing over time. And I'm sure COVID-19 added quite a spanner on the works here. How important was it to take stock for this sector across the continent when you look at how things have been in the last 2 years?
Well, exactly. So we've had an opportunity to reassess what topics we want to bring to the event, to what we're going to focus on. And I think what's really come out of all of this is how the public and private sector need to work together for a sustainable healthcare system. And our role at Africa Health and Informa Markets is to provide the platform for that discussion. And so what you see here today are individuals coming to learn from other speakers from around the world, from around the African continent, about how to take stock of what's happened over the last few years and bring it back to their healthcare facility and learn it from international speakers and professionals on what's important and what differences can they make. And from a private sector, it's really what new technologies have emerged from this pandemic and how to bring them back to your facility, and how do you learn from that, and how do you take it back, and what can you do with it, basically. So that's really what we've seen here today, is new technologies, digital health, technology, equity, etc. So the really important topics that have emerged over the last few years, and I think it's mostly about that private and public working together.
Especially because it's going to also be important to improve the experience for the patients who are now utilizing, these particular services. Because ultimately, you think of how technology changed during COVID-19, for example. You didn't even need sometimes to go physically to your doctor. You could consult, via a webcam or Zoom or anything, or video call, and be able to get some kind of assistance very quickly. And I suppose that could be, a picture, as you say, some of the partnerships when you look at private and public healthcare, because it's all about the patient's experience.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's also about access to healthcare, right? That's very important, is how do people perhaps in remote areas get access to healthcare, and a lot of those digital technologies are assisting with that. What we need is training for doctors, so they know how to use this technology, they know how to explain it to patients as well as other doctors and nurses, etc. So that's what we're seeing here today, is like, how do I take this back to my practice, and how do I take this back to my day-to-day work?
And talking about the issue of training, it's one of those that has been quite hectic, especially quite big here in South Africa as well. I mean, you look at some of the medical doctors that would have been trained, needing access to be able to get into some of these institutions to be able to practice. And at the same time, you look at that and juxtaposing it with access, as we just spoke about now, in rural areas. I wonder if you're also looking at that as the continent is meeting to really try and get as many of these doctors that are trained to some of these far-flung areas as well?
Yes, so when learning and knowledge sharing is one of the big cornerstones of our events. We provide CPD accreditation. We opened up the conferences that we run this year to free. I mean, they used to be paid for conferences, but we want to be able to provide learning for healthcare professionals. And I think what's come out of today is there's such a keenness to learn about all of these new technologies and how they take them back to their practices. But what they're saying is, like, you need to teach us from the source, from when we're at school learning. It's very hard to bring in these new technologies to when you're a fully trained doctor, when, you know, it's changing mindsets as well. So I think there's the real appetite for this. I think there's a training need, and our job is to provide this platform so people can know about these issues and then take them back and say, okay, well, I need training and this is what you need to do for me so I can do my job properly and I can give access to care to patients around the continent, etc. So there's still a lot to do, but I think events like this put that into the spotlight of what needs to be done.
Yeah, and Solenne, thank you so much for your time. I mean, really, these are important conversations that are taking place at a critical time, even as you say that, you know, it's about the changing of mindsets, which is going to be quite a mammoth task, you know, for the professionals. But thank you so much for your time. Do appreciate it. Thank you. That was a Group Director of Informa, Solenne Singer, talking about this gathering of healthcare professionals that is taking place at Gallagher Estate. It's going on until tomorrow. And this, of course, is looking at the ever-changing face of the healthcare sector. You can only imagine how things are different now post the COVID-19 pandemic.